So in the last video about Hytale, I promised you guys to build a city in the desert. I mean, how hard can it be to build a couple buildings, right? Well, that was a mistake. I genuinely thought I could get this done within a week or so. Anyway, like any good idea, it started in Counter-Strike, which is kinda a joke, but at the same time, we are on Mirage at B-side. They're those towers, right? I think we've all seen them before. Those are actually ancient Iranian AC units. Yeah, for real. You already know this video is gonna get wild. But before we even place one block, we need to meet the basic necessities for life to be sustainable. A location near water, especially in the desert, food, and create some shelter. Did it take me 8 hours to find a location? Yes. Did I have to respawn a couple times? Yes. And did I go back to choose the desert closest to the spawn? Yup. So here's an overview of the location. Farmland obviously needs to be close to the water. In real life, the Nile River actually floods from time to time and deposits a bunch of fertile soil from Ethiopia, right in the sandy desert. That also gives us the first town to build, Cairo. The Egyptians, besides building gigantic pyramids, also figured out how to actually water their crops further away from the river by building man-powered jadoufs, which are basically cranes used to pump, in air quotes, water into man-made channels to distribute the water throughout larger areas. But what crops did they even grow? Well, if you compare real life to Hytale, we can only plant wheat, lettuce, rice, corn and cotton. They had such an abundance of produce that they actually exported a bunch of them to the Roman Empire. Yeah, the Great Roman Empire wasn't so great after all, was it? Anyway, they took for example wheat and ground them into flour using two large stones on top of one another with grates in between them, using oxen to power the grinding wheels. Nice, we have flour and now can make dough. You know what that means? It is time to build some buildings. Welcome to Cairo. Egyptians used locally available resources like sandstone, mud bricks and limestone, and usually not a lot of wood because of the scarcity of it in the desert. Now, there is limestone in Hytale, but it is not available in the Explore mode. Bruh. Egyptians sometimes were a bit extra, and they wanted to build some gardens, for example with pools and fish in them, and some exotic plants and trees. Most of the structures nowadays sadly vanished due to the floods eroding them away, but Cairo wasn't the only town battling with floods. Welcome to Shibam. Also known as the Manhattan in the desert. These are high-rise buildings reaching up to 11 stories tall from an estimated 1700 years ago. Made of mud. Like, dude, huh? Now sure, they're continually being repaired. And the current buildings are probably a good bit younger than this. But still, huh? Now, the flash flooding in that area shaped Shibam a lot. They had to build buildings on a hill, and after growing a bunch of population, they had no other space left except upwards, hence the high rises. The elevation and outer walls were also very helpful for the occasional raids against the town. Nowadays, people still live here, with a population of 7,000 people, and an area of about only 16 football fields, which makes it more population dense than Manhattan, if you can believe it. The white parts of the buildings are actually not for show. They're actually limestone covered mud parts, reflecting the sunlight and keeping the insides cool. The high-rise buildings also catch the sun, bathing the areas between the buildings in shade, keeping the outside somewhat cool. But still, like, it's all made of mud. I'd rather experience smaller buildings. Like those. It seems like we're back in Counter-Strike, looking at those claustrophobic building styles. In actuality, we're in the old town of Al-Ula. شو فيها إذا صوتك أعلى سمع وتسكت العالم أصبع على ثمك كلمة تحكي شو المعنى 870 residential units, alongside more than 400 shops at about 700 years old, reside here. Most people usually just drive past this place to get to the tombs in Hegra. And if you are interested in those weird shapes on the ground, spreading up to a football field in length. Now that we're on a small hill though, did you know you can extract water from a hill? Let's explore aqueducts, or so-called qanats, and how ancient Iranians used them to cool down their buildings, approximately 3000 years ago. Welcome to a city somewhere in Iran. It's not a specific one. Let's go back underground. So, as you might already know, there's a groundwater table all over the planet, which raises with hills and mountains. Which also means if you drill into a mountain, you can use the gravity to lead water into aqueducts and use them down at the foot of the mountain. Some of the aqueducts were used for farming, and some ended up being used to cool down buildings. Like using underground cool spaces, so-called
Shabistan,
using the evaporation of the water to cool the environment. Not only that, but in the beginning I already teased the wind catchers. They took that cooled air and also cooled down the buildings above. But what are wind catchers and how do they even work? There are a couple different kinds. Some use the Bernoulli principle, but we'll focus on the easier to understand ones, which is the chimney effect. These towers are not built to have a nice view on top. No, they're mostly hollow. The chimney effect basically means that hot air rises. So if you split a hollow tower into two chambers and point one side into the sun and keep the other in the shade, connect them at the bottom, you get some air circulation, which at the same time will purge the hot air which is trapped indoors with cool air from the outside. That cool air goes through the lower level, up the stairs and back out again. If you add an aqueduct to the chamber, you'll also suck air through the aqueduct into the top of the building. Now Iran came up with that idea, but it also spread onto multiple areas, like Morocco and Egypt as well, as you can see in Counter-Strike. Even crazier than that is, they also used that technique to keep ice from melting, brought in from the mountains, and even grew them in those yakals if the climate outside got to below freezing at night. The way they kept the ice from melting was using the flow of air, using it like an air curtain over the ice and let the hot air rise up and out of the dome. Those wind catchers are almost everywhere to see in the city. I originally also wanted to build an oasis in the video, but it already ballooned to a size where it's just not feasible for just one video. So here's a question for you guys. Do you guys watch live streams from time to time? And would you guys be interested in seeing the oasis get finished on stream? The reason I'm asking is because we grew a bunch. At the time of recording this, we're at 450 subscribers in just 1 month of making 3 videos. That's insane. Any input regarding this or anything else is very welcome. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video, which hopefully will actually just take a week to make.
When we're headed out, we'll be holding on. 'Cause I kinda love can take the miles. There's no distance now that could break that